Hi, I'm Euge Valovirta, and this one is about Otto Audio's heavy compressor. So Otto Audio does great stuff, amp sims, and more is more mastering compressor, whatever. That's part of my mastering template, and this is fairly new product from Otto Audio called Heavy Compressor, and this is a mix I've done a while ago. I'm actually mixing this whole album now. This is a Swedish death thrash metal band called Sturb House, and this one is their single music video called Death by Wolf, which is out now. So this song is already mixed, but I'm just gonna show you how I used heavy compressor, or how I use heavy compressor on this one and in general. So let's listen a bit of the song. I have muted the vocals so you hear drums, guitars and bass, because those are the three things I use the compressor. So let's listen a bit. Okay, drums. So it was on drums parallel compression and drum parallel crush, bass and rhythm guitar bass. So yeah, let's go through the plugin first, just basic, controls. So there's your input, you can drive it. And then there's this kind of analog flavor. Now it's off. And then there's two kind of EQ curves. They sound a bit different. Attack, release, threshold, your basic knee, whether it's steep or different knees, your ratio, distortion, and this is the volume for these distortion circuits. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 different distortion circuits. I'm using the tube distortion on the parallel drums, and the sig mode, hyperbolic tangent, arc, whatever, fuzz diode. You can get really creative with this. And this is Unity. I'm just using, it's easy. So no matter how much you compress, how little, this Unity keeps it the same volume than your dry signal. So it's easy to compare what you are actually doing. Then auto attack, auto release, kind of like, saved attack and release times, which you can get interesting results. And a look ahead. All right, so let's mute the everything, all these other drum things. So there's a room, crush, tile room, snare reverb, gated reverb. And let's listen to the drums without the parallel compression. And then we'll listen just the parallel compression with the auto, and I'll show you. And this is a dual mono. Depending on the DAW, I think on most DAWs you can do this. So you can put the plugins on dual mono. I always like to have drum parallel compression, dual mono. You know, if the plugin doesn't have a dual mono mode, you can do it by like this. So you can just choose a multi-mono, which is a dual mono version of the plugin here in Pro Tools. Okay, so let me just go this through, tweak, let the drums play. Let's put some kind of a loop there. And you know, these crazy distortions, it might sound like, oh, that's too much, but then when you just kind of blend that in there, it's you know, or use the amount knob. This is the mix knob. This is the amount of the distortion, you know, you choose, then it's the amount, and then this one is the mix, how much you blend that in. Remember that, you know, using this like parallel behind a different fader, you can get quite crazy and just blend that in and just gonna add more character, more heaviness, you know, according to taste. Sometimes what I do might be a bit too much, but this is really aggressive song. You just kind of need everything to be ugly and heavy and really punch you in the face. Cool. I don't actually know where I had them, but this sounds fine, you know. Let's leave it there. Cool. Then let's check out the drum cross. So to this parallel bus, I'm setting everything, you know, pre-fader, so the whole drum mix goes in there. And then to this crush, I'm only sending kick, snare, and toms. So there's several kick tracks here. The real kick trigger, snare top, snare bottom, snare trigger. You know, all the kicks end up in the kick bus, all the different snare mics in the snare bus, all toms in the tom bus, all overheads, and so on. But I'm sending these three. So now let's listen the parallel crush. my idea with this one is just to kind of add sustain, not necessarily transients or anything. So I have the fastest attack. So you know, if I let me show you what happens when I dial this back. I don't need those attacks. I just want to kind of sustain, so that the toms, the snare, and the kick drum, they are like a little bit shorter. Not like a reverb sustain, but just this thing here. So fast attack, medium release, and then going crazy with the distortion. I'm using the diode distortion, so everything is maxed, because this can be ugly and crazy. And then again, blending in according to taste. So I don't want like overdo this. I just want to have a little bit more sustain to kick, snare, and tones. Cool, this does it. Then when we add the parallel drums and all the you know, rooms. There's 4 kind of reverbs: drum room, tide room, separate snare reverb, gated reverb. They're very mildly on, because this is, you know, thrash metal. The drums are supposed to be kind of in your face. Everything's supposed to be in your face, but a little bit. Okay, then bass. There's one channel, bass, but he recorded, Marcus, worked great. You know, I just compressed it a tiny bit. I guess this heavy compressor is also a, you know, mojo maker. So again, distortion mix is cranked. The level is kind of halfway, and I'm using the fuzz distortion. Just to add a little bit character, and then in the context with the drums. The bass is clean. He plays with the fingers, and that was the sound he wanted, I wanted, just like this kind of old school bass sound. And then the guitars are really tightly played, and as you can see from the waveform, oh, there's really no need to compress them, but just to add a little bit mojo, because mojo is good. Let's listen. It's not much, but the devil's in the details. So I'm adding just a little bit of a tube distortion, and everything is the whole thing is parallel. The distortion is parallel. Just that tiny, you know, the missing couple of percents. And you know, this is again dual mono, because there's a lot of times the guitars are playing different stuff. So I don't want the right side to duck the left side. I want it to be dual mono in parallel, just to add a tiny bit of Otto mojo in there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's listen to the song a little bit once more, and I bypass the Otto from those 4 instances that I use it in this mix, so you'll hopefully hear the difference. Like that. Hey, hopefully you found this interesting and informative. And conclusion. I think this heavy compressor, it's a great compressor. You can emulate a lot of different compressors, you know, with the knee knob, because like you know, LA2H kind of overshoots this certain curve. So I feel that when you push this more, you can kind of get this similar, and then you can have really smooth curves by lowering the knee, your ratio, attack, release. Yeah, and this is really unique. This, because usually a compressor or whatever, you have a certain flavor, but with this one you can choose your distortion flavor, and then you can choose the amount of the how much it distorts, the effect of the distortion, and then you can choose how much you want to blend that distortion in to the compressor. And then you can have it like a clean. So these are kind of like analog EQ curves, and yeah, it's I think it's really unique, and I like it a lot. I have found a use for it, as you heard, and I will most likely find use for this in the future. Because whenever I want, like especially the parallel drums, those I like to have a really characterful stuff. So at least on those, I will use this probably a lot in the future. Thanks for watching. Links to Otto's website are in the description below. You know, check it out. I recommend. Alright, thanks for watching. Until next time, heavy compressor.